Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Good morning to all the dignitaries present on this platform and the participants. I welcome you all on day 2 of 2 days national workshop on trends in cybersecurity, which is organized by Internal Quality Assurance Cell and Department of Information Technology of Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology in association with Squad Infotech Private Limited. We are happy to inform you that we have received huge response for this topic. More than 1100 participants have registered for this workshop. I thank you all for joining this workshop. Today, we are pleased to welcome Mr. Somil from Ridgeback Network Defense. Today, he will be sharing his expert talk on cybersecurity in the current world with respect to framework based on NIST and cyber kill chain. With that, I will ask Professor S.K. Sabnis to introduce Mr. Somil. Over to Professor S.K. Sabnis.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, one and all. We will have brief introduction of today's speaker, Mr. Somil Khandalia. Presently, he is working as cyber security analyst at Ridgeback Network Defense, Mumbai. Experienced cyber security analyst with demonstrated history of working in the information technology and services industry. Skilled in training, technical pre-sales support, and solution designing, cybersecurity network infrastructure and security solution. Certified with CCNA, CEH, and many others. He was pre-sales cybersecurity analyst from July 19 to December 19 with Bear. He was with K7 Computing Private Limited as pre-sales manager from April 2018 to July 2019. He was with TP-Link India as a manager pre-sales, SMB solutions and design from June 2015 to April 2018. He was with D-Link India Limited as D-Link certified trainer and support executive, D-Link Academy from January 2013 to June 2015. Now I request Mr. Somil to start the session. Over to you, Somil.
Thank you, sir. And first of all, very good morning to all the honorable faculties and all the honorable team. And thank you for giving this chance to share some kind of knowledge in the current trend of cybersecurity. Best part is today, all know that due to this coronavirus thing, it is becoming a most important factor, like cybersecurity is becoming the most important thing which can be done. So to start with, I'll be sharing the presentation. I hope the presentation is viewable to all. So I hope we are into the same screen. It is risk, threat, and vulnerability. So to start with, what is basically a cybersecurity? So cybersecurity evolves or revolves around this three terms. One, we call it as a risk, we call it as a threat, and we call it as a vulnerability. But are we aware that there are four categories in the cybersecurity world where this particular is being distributed? So there are four categories mentioned are known threats and known vulnerabilities. So what do you mean by known threats and known vulnerabilities is something what we know and something what we are aware of. Or it's basically why I have given an example of a CCTV is you see a CCTV camera installed. Why do you install a CCTV camera? You install a CCTV camera where you know that a person or an intruder may attack from it. It may be your gate, it may be your premises, or it may be you identify the places and you put the security over there. So if we know what are the threats and if we know what are the vulnerabilities, that comes into the physical security or kind of a CCTV security comes in known threats and known vulnerability. And the biggest example in today's world, we say the firewalls are part of known threats, known vulnerabilities. Then The second it comes is called as unknown threats and unknown vulnerability. Now, first of all, what is unknown threats? Unknown threats is I don't know, right, from where it will come. I don't know from where it will attack. But yes, I know that this is a weakness in my network where I should keep tick of, or where should I keep track of it. So known threats and known vulnerabilities is another thing. Third, we call it as a known threats but unknown vulnerabilities. I know I may get hacked, but I don't know what are the weakness on my network or what are the weakness in my particular device what I am using. So I know the threat, but I don't know the vulnerability. So we have a foolproof solutions for all these three. But now, as you say, today the most structured attack is happening. Most sophisticated attacks are happening. And that's why it gave a rise to the fourth threat, that is unknown threats and unknown vulnerability, where we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know what are the weakness on my network, and we don't know from where we are going to get attacked, from where we are going to get breached. So today, all that, like if you see the verticals, whether it may be an industrial control systems ICS, whether it may be an industrial network, whether it may be a network which related to the banking financial institutions, whether it may be a network related to education, nobody ever thinks about unknown threats and unknown vulnerabilities. We are only aware about viruses which may come. So we are relaxed that we have an endpoint security, so nothing can happen. We are aware about, we have a firewall, but we don't know that the most important factor or the threat in today's cybersecurity world is an insider threat, who have already bypassed the firewall, who have already have given the rights to access the network, but still he may intentionally or accidentally may breach your network. And that time this picture comes into the play is of unknown threats and unknown vulnerabilities. So these are some of the traditional security, and it's being breached consistently. And why? Because if we see, there are some big attacks, huge attacks happening in the big organization. So I have a question for them. Do they don't have a firewall in place to restrict that? Or do they don't have any kind of endpoint security mechanism to restrict them? The answer would be yes. They have a firewall, they have a mechanism, but still they get breached. They get breached because 93% of cases hackers took minutes to breach, but companies spent weeks or months to discover. Why? Because it was an insider threat activity, or it was an insider actor. I mean, I'm not saying that all insiders are hackers, but our insider employees, our insider team, our insider staff may click on something which they were not supposed to click, right? So second, if we say it takes almost 7 months before a data breach are discovered, and out of that breaches, only 4% are actually investigated, because it's a process. It's a process. Like if somebody has been part of your network, somebody has gone inside your network, so he will not instantly go to a server. He will not instantly go and start hacking the things. He will remain in the network like a time bomb. He will remain in your network to get all the information of what you are doing, how you are doing, who is doing, so how, what, when, and why. That if he gets all this information, then only a hacker will start with hacking. But that does not leave the fact that that hacker or that breach is still an active part of your network, and he's seeing everything what you are doing from a remote station. So lost assets 100x more prevalent than threat. So cyber attacks costing, we all know, right? It's a 500 billion year, and referring to a particular the Great Hack series. So if you see, it's $1 trillion industry. A data is $1 trillion industry. So, and breaching that obviously will pay who are a bad actors or who are there to damage something in the cyber security arena. 95% of the attacks are financially motivated. So every 7 seconds, a new malware is released. Believe me, it is, I am telling the best figure of it. It may be 2 seconds or 3 seconds also, but to be positive, I'm saying 7 seconds. So every 7 seconds, a new malware is released. Now, what do you mean by, you must have said that a new malware is released, so I have an antivirus, I have an endpoint security, I have a firewall. So what will happen, it will detect it and stop it? No, it will not happen like that, because what we refer, this every new malware or every new threat or every new software which is there, which is released to give a threat in your environment, is called a zero-day attack. It's a term called a zero-day attack. So your endpoint security, or your basically firewall, which has a antivirus, or basically restricting technologies which are there a part of it, will only work if it has a signature matching to that particular malware. So the zero-day attack is what, till that signature is released by a particular provider of an endpoint, it becomes a zero-day attack. So zero-day attack is basically, it will give a chance of a hacker to take part of this vulnerability. So this is called as vulnerability. So if you say the costing is nothing but a risk, your malware is your vulnerability, and basically whatever actions takes is a threat to your organization. So nearly 30% open phishing emails, 12% do click or open attached files. You cannot keep a track of each and every individual in your organization, or especially on their personal email account. So what happens is, basically, if 30% open the phishing emails, 12% do click on that links. So what does that mean? So that means if I have clicked on that link, that means I have given a welcome entry to a attacker to be a part of my network. I have given a welcome entry to a attacker, to a threat, via my vulnerability of clicking it, and thus involving a risk for my organization or for my individual particular device, or whether it may be a huge enterprise. So how does this happen? So first is, there are too many products, and they have a limited resources as far as the cyber security is concerned, because an IT guy sometimes is managing multiple products. So there are chances that he may skip something, or there are chances that he may not see a threat, and that may be result into a particular vulnerability, and that will increase the risk. Second, advanced attack techniques. As I said, today's attacks are more sophisticated. Initially, people were attacking just for fun. But today, it's kind of a black market business. It is basically a people get hired just to hack. Third, they have a limited resources, subject to devices, subject to the infrastructure, subject to the costing, subject to the budgets they get approval for the cyber security, and obviously the human resources also. Sometimes the people managing IT are the same guys who are managing a cyber security infrastructure. Lack of automation, this is again really the most important, because we are in a world where everything is AI based, ML based, and basically big data based. So it has to be automated, and basically lack of automation may lead to a human error. So it may give a open gate to a particular hacker. No of visibility into the network. So I believe that if you can't see, you cannot protect. It's my term of cybersecurity. It's a clear term what I believe in. If you want to protect something, you it has to be visible to you. If you want to protect something, it has to be viewed to you. So if you can't view, you cannot protect. So limited visibility is another a big problem in traditional breaches today. And compliance pressures. What happens is, nowadays companies, just to take care of the compliance, just to go for that audit part, they initially do some temporary measures or something. So that relates to the compliance pressures, and that may lead to a particular threat or a particular vulnerability, and may lead to the risk. So these are some of the traditional security, why it is being breached constantly. So we will have a question. I have a firewall. Yes. I have an endpoint security. Yes. I have a best firewall. Yes, it has. But what happens if basically a phishing mail is come and an insider person who is allowed by a firewall clicks on that link? Obviously, yes, there is a threat which is given an access to a vulnerability, and obviously then it will lead to a risk factor. So what does an NIST framework says? So what is an NIST framework is basically NIST cybersecurity framework says that you have to identify, you have to protect, you have to detect, you have to respond, and you have to recover. So what is basically an NIST? So NIST is a framework designed by basically like an ISO. It's basically it is a National Institute of Standards and Technology. So they have designed some standards like to protect what you have to do, to identify what you have to do, to detect, to respond, to recover. But what is the initial stage? So NIST framework provides exactly a sector organization with structure of accessing an ability to prevent, detect, respond to the cyber incidents. But what if you can identify at the initial stage only? So, what is the most important stage with risk assessment is necessary to stop the intruder, or it is necessary to stop giving the information to the hacker, to the attacker, or to a person who may lead to a risk in my organization. So, that is why the most important aspect to understand is at the identification phase. If you can identify any kind of malicious activity initially, or any kind of thing which is not normal at the initial stage only, so what you can do is you are creating first of all a wall to that. So it's what we say, it's prevention is better than cure. That is what you are doing it, which is what you are implementing it. So what does it say? It says identify. So it's like develop an organizational understanding to manage cybersecurity risk to system, people, asset, data, and capabilities. So what do you mean by systems? Systems doesn't refer to only computers, because I just refer to an article. It basically says that an organization was hacked with the help of basically a printer, which was a wireless printer, which was a network printer. So what happens if we don't consider that assets or that system as a vulnerable system? Because we don't have any antivirus or endpoint security for a printer. We don't have any antivirus security for an OT device or IoT device. So basically what happens is managing cybersecurity to systems, yes, obviously to the people. How you can do to the people is by awareness. Because if they are not aware on what to click, what not to click, if they are not aware of what things may go wrong or what things are right for them to operate a system, so it may restrict them to opening some unwanted things in your organization. Assets, what do you mean by assets? Assets is nothing but, you know, a kind of location, who is your vendor, who is providing you the details, who is giving you the supply. So it's basically kind of information gathering of your assets. Data, obviously we know what is the data. Data is basically securing anything what is important or may lead to a financial loss, consider as data. And the capabilities is nothing but you don't have to know a rocket science to, you know, enter inside a server. The only thing you require is how to use a remote desktop, and you require some user credentials. That's it. So capabilities is also considered. So we sometimes ignore a person who is not that much technical, may also be a threat to organization. So capabilities is not that important, but it needs to be identified that it is not relevant, but it needs to be identified. Protect, obviously develop and implement appropriate safeguard to insurance delivery of critical services. So it's basically you are creating a wall to protect it so that nothing can happen. If it is not able to protect it, it is very important you to detect. So what are the detect mechanism is basically any event logs, like there is a technology called as SIEM, that is security incident event management, right? So basically any event which is happening, it will generate a logs, and it will update a firewall, so it is detect, then respond. So in kind of, if we are not if we are not able to identify, if we are not able to protect, at least we have to detect, and then we have to respond. So respond is nothing but the action which we will be taking it, or the changes which we will be making it in our network, in our security infrastructure, in a particular devices, so that it will help us to recover any kind of loss, or it will develop and implement appropriate activities to maintain. And that would be a kind of a regular process which is happening on hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis. So this is an idea of what an NIST cyber framework is. It's a list of kind of a particular to do and to like do's and don'ts, which we need. If we are following it strictly, we have a particular good digital safety life to take care. So I just like to share a small video out here. This says, and what is a 5 part of operational security. So if we say that I am okay, if I have clicked what it may lead to, or what sometimes we think whether it is good or bad. So it's just a small video, explanatory video of what are the process of operational security, and how it may lead if we follow the, if we don't follow that 5 process, what would be the danger. So I'm just playing that 5 OPSEC process. So if we saw, was the first part was identifying. First part was understanding who is maybe a problem or who may be a threat. So these are the some of the headlines of cyber attack, which, and these are the updated ones. These are the last week, or basically this week's very start attacks which has been recorded. So some headline says that Honda cyber attack halts plant in India, Brazil. So the manufacturer Honda, automobile manufacturer Honda, was attacked by was had a cyber security attack, and it was basically a ransomware attack. This is another news saying that cybercrime shoots up in lockdown, over 2,000 cases reported till April, because uh, people are free, and even the bad minds are free nowadays. So it's a good chance for us to protect, and it's a good opportunity for them to attack. So it's basically who reaches first wins. So especially in lockdown, it is over 2,000 cases reported just in April, right? And there is a tycoon ransomware aims at software and education sector. So, and there are 1 lakh companies inboxes which is hit by a voice message phishing. So why I showed you this headlines is there is an idea behind showing this. People, do you think that a company like an Honda, or basically uh, like aims at software education, like there may be an education sector, or basically this 1 lakh of companies, if I say 50% of these companies have all the mechanism in their network, they have a firewall, yes, they have endpoint security, yes, they have all sort of activities which should be there to protect. Especially if you say a big company like Honda, They must have provided everything which is required to secure an infrastructure. They have provided everything which is basically a good part, like to protect or to restrict anybody coming from outside into the network. But still, they got a cyber attack. How? Why? So my question is, it is basically because they didn't identify, or they lacked identifying lateral movement. Now, what is the lateral movement? Again, these are lateral movement is, if I get a mail, consider a scenario that I am receiving an email and I am a part of the organization, or I'm a student in a college, or I'm a part of an organization. I received an email. I clicked on that email, right? It says you want something, or whether it may be your, you get any kind of phishing emails which is not actually sent by a sender. A user clicks on it. What happens when the user clicks on it? There is a malicious code, or there is a script which gets installed on that particular machine. Now, will that malicious code or that software will start immediately? No. It will remain in your system. It will remain in your system till long time, and slowly it will move from one system to other, one to other, till it reaches the critical assets like your server, like your main machines, like your user data servers, and where user can get actual gain of the information. So these are the 5 stages of lateral movement. So first is infection, compromise, then it is reconnaissance, then traditional theft, and lateral movement. So what is infection techniques? So it may be given by a phishing email. Anybody can receive a phishing email, right? So it is by drive-by, it is an exploit kit, or it's a flash drive. So if I am receiving somebody says, okay, this is a good part, you install it from a pen drive. I'm installing a pen drive, but that particular file, or it maybe have some malicious code. So it is always recommend that always to take a pen drive, or always take a hard drive, or any kind of storage device from your known sources only. Do not take any particular drives from unknown sources. And before you take, see to it that you scan it till the rootkit level. So you get an infection. Then what the next stage is, it is infected system checks in with the command and control server. Human attacker gives command to infected to allow access. Then GUI interface options, human attacker starts reconcile. So these are some of the stages after giving a phishing email it takes. Then the reconciliations, as I said, there are some of the commands where even firewall is not active, because these are part of the Windows command. These are part of your network, your Windows commands, which are allowed. So a human attacker starts running some commands to gain intelligence. So for example, if I run a command called as ARP/A, so I'll get all the information which are there, number of IP addresses which are there. I can see an ARP table, that is a table of all the IP address available in the network. So I can use netstat to see what are network connections. I can use nmap, what is a network scanner. I can use netuse to access resources. I can use NetUser to manage local user domain. I can use task list to see what processes are running on the system. Why I'm sharing this is because all this are not even detected by your endpoint security, and all this are not even detected by your firewall, because for a firewall and for an endpoint security, this is a normal network command which is running on your network systems, or which is running on your Windows system. So after this reconciliance, he has all the information. What will happen? He will go to get the credential theft. So he will become himself as an administrator to gather plain text credentials, to get password files, to get privileges. Like for example, he will make himself an administrator. And once he gets administrator rights, he can take an RDP, he can go to GUI, he can go to PowerShell, and what leads into an attack. So attack is nothing but a amount of processes, a amount of activities a hacker does, right from an infect sending a phishing mail to getting a graphical user interface of your server. But what happens if we stop him at the phase, or we stop him at the phases of pre-hack only, that is a reconcile stage? So if we stop him at the pre-hack phase only, if we don't give him an information, or if we give him a wrong information, right, or if we give him something like that, like if he's searching for an IP address and he does not get a right IP address, or he does not get the right information, so he will not able to get. It's like an sharing some wrong information to a person who is asking for an address, so he will not reach his destination. And that particular technology or that particular term is called as an adaptive security, and that is a major part of risk assessment. So what is risk? Again, I come back to things. So risk is a simple calculation. It is basically threat into vulnerabilities. I have a threat, that means I have to check for the vulnerabilities. And threat into vulnerabilities may lead to a financial or a data loss. And the vulnerability is nothing but a weakness or a gaps created by exploiting threats. So if I consider an example of phishing email, so vulnerability is what? Here, the vulnerability is my user who is clicking on that particular link. And then what is the threat? Particular, by opening that particular email or phishing email, that particular email is getting downloaded on my particular malicious code is downloaded on that machine, which is leading to a threat, and then finally taking generation into a risk, as slowly by a lateral movement he is accessing a particular server. So attack is an insider threat activity. Why I said this is because people may restrict firewall from outsiders, but what if an insider makes a mistake, or insider intentionally or unintentionally clicks on something which is not supposed to? So you see the diagram here. If you see the diagram here, there was one machine which was infected. You can see the chain where slowly this red line is moving to each and every machine. And finally, he says this man is an outsider attacker who has gotten access to your data rack. That means he has a winning flag on his hand. Why this winning flag is? Because he didn't directly had an access, or he didn't directly attack this. He went to a receptionist machines. From the receptionist machines, he slowly took an information. From that information, he went to the insider machine. From insider machine, he again went to some other machines. From other machines to one another machine, and then finally he was successful in reaching the server and getting the information. So that is called as an exploitation. So exploitation is nothing but a captured information is sent back to the attacker's team home base for analysis and further exploitation, fraud, or worse. So what happens is reconnaissance is the major role in cybersecurity attack. And if you see this, initially it takes hours to months to do that. So it may be from, as I said, it may take 7 months to do a bridge. So in out of 7 months, it may be that for the reconnaissance stage, he may spending 1 month or 1.5 months also. So one is preparation, intrusion, and active breach. Active breach is the actual attack which happens. So sometimes we have heard people saying, team, that I had a phishing attack. Now, I always have a habit to correct them that what is a phishing attack? Is this a phishing a tool, or it's an attack? So if you ask me, phishing is a tool, it's not an attack. Attack is when a person will reach to a server, will take a critical information from your server, will take a critical information from your machine. At that time, it is called as a attack. But phishing is not an attack. Phishing is a tool or is a particular reconcile stage, or it is particular an weaponization stage which he uses to enter or to be a part of your network. So phishing again is a tool to get an attack or to make an attack successful. So if you see, what if we stop an hacker at the preparation stage only? So how do we do that? So with the help of an adaptive security, if we are not able to give him an information what he wants, or if we give him a wrong information, so his whole planning or his whole part which is there in the future may be, will not give him a right path to enter the server, will not lead him to the exact location, and it will thus give a particular adaptive defense on a network security. So I have just that's a common network diagram for every enterprise, for whether it is a small, a medium or large enterprise. Second, this is basically a common for any network. So we have a data center, we have a user network. Again, that particular company, whether it is may a small, big, large enterprise, right, it may have a branch at various locations. So they have an office network which is connected via MPLS, VPN line. They have an extranet, so there are some roaming users or there are some end users which will be accessing also. And there is some kind of services which is given by the third party. So consider a person who is developing a product and they have a customer support center which is outsourced. So third parties users also use those information. So how does this happen? So there is something like a software supply chain. It's an open source code. So what happens is there is an external reconnaissance. External reconnaissance is done. It bypasses your firewall. Then he compromises a machine. How does it do? Once the machine is compromised, with the help of interconnectivity via MPLS, he compromises one machine on the office network, he compromises one machine on the extranet, and he compromises one machine on the third party users. And that is done via lateral movement. So this is your first entry point of your network. From that first entry point, he slowly moves on to get information or get infection of other particular networks. So these are some stages. Perimeter is breached, endpoint security is breached, then there is a reconnaissance, he is gathering information, then a lateral movement happens, then it gets CNC, that is control over that is control and command, that is control over the IT systems. And finally what happens is there is a data, malwares, advanced penetration testing, and business disruptions. So what happens is finally you can say that there is an attack in an enterprise, there is attack in your network, and it's a chain of activities. It's not that I have accessed something and immediately the attack will happen. So it is breached, then internal breach, then information gathering, then lateral movement, then control over IT systems and all. So in adaptive technology, what happens is reconnaissance is the major part, or giving information. So what will happen is it will compile a list of hypotheses. For each hypothesis, initiate one more events to gather data. For each event, make determination as whether the resultant data support, and using new information, go back to step one. So this is a chain of gathering in information. So he will gather the information, he will check whether the information is right or require more information to gather. He will compile it, he will storyboard it, and then he will again check all the data which is supported to move ahead. And then finally, he will repeat this task and then move ahead. So what happens if I stop him at the reconcile stage? How to do that? We'll see it in the basically next or in the second session of today's. So there are some case studies which are there. Here, basically, a very good bank, a very renowned bank, a Cosmos Bank, was hit by a cyber hack losses with 94 crores in 2 days. Now, my simple question was, how it happened? Because if we consider a bank, yes, they have a firewall, they have everything. So what lead to it? So basically, the major handful was a phishing and a zero-day attack. There was a backdoor, there was a lateral movement happened, the data was gathered, and finally it was exploited. So why I took this case study is because if we feel that I have all the mechanisms in my place and I'm secure, so that doesn't mean that hacker may not find any sophisticated ways to get that. So that's why it is called as a well-planned operation. And consider a fact that we have to be sure for always, we have to be sure every time, but a hacker have to be right on the target only once. So we have to restrict the target only, hacker has to attack only once, but we have to protect always. So we have to be 100% confirm, 100% secure every time, right? So this is a ratio of a protector and an attacker, right? So these are some of my assumptions that what is basically a hack. So if I say number, so if I say in-house and I say distribution channels, so I have just bifurcated an example of an organization saying that these are the different departments and why the hacker is interested in taking what. So if you see these numbers, so client data loss, payment fraud, website or social media attack, DDoS attack, CEO spread phishing, IP theft, ransomware. So these are some of the activities where hacker is more interested in doing it. So whether it is distribution channel, front office, middle office, back office. So if I consider front office, where we don't, have a list security, we say that front office can only come with an endpoint security. It's okay and it's under firewall, right? But these are list of the risk analyzed in the risk assessment technology that it may lead to investment strategies and research may lead to number 7. So it may lead to IP theft. Trading application algorithm may lead to IP theft. Customer relationship management may lead to client data theft, or it may lead to data loss. Robo advisories may lead to one, obviously client data theft. Fifth is basically DDoS attack, or 7, it may be a IP theft. So these are the list of some of the combination of the attacks where a hacker is more interested, right? Or a hacker may have an active part on it. This is a traditional diagram of a banking industry. Why I said banking industry is because we all have to be secure. We all have to be, because finally anything we want to secure is our personal and financial assets. So there is a cyber brain, sends some phishing email, then an infiltration or infection or malware deployed infecting servers and controls. So what happens is there is a cyber brain. He has sent some phishing email. That phishing email is either clicked or run on a particular machine. Infiltration and infection has started happening via a bank employee, and then slowly it has started infecting a bank infrastructure. So what happens? The result risk is money stolen, money transferred into other bank accounts, inflating accounts balances and money transferred, manipulating controls to split out cash, money laundering, or it may be a crypto conversion. We don't know. So as we know, ransomware is another example of a crypto conversion. And this is not only for a banking network, but as a user, if I'm using a net banking on my mobile, I have to make 3 important steps. I will never use a net banking on a public computer. I will never use a net banking on a public Wi-Fi, right? I will never use a net banking if I have downloaded any kind of application from an unknown sources, or I will never use a net banking on my phone if it is accessible or it does not have a proper authentication mechanism like fingerprinting, like a proper password to open or anything. Why this 4 never is most important is tomorrow if you are clicking, you don't know what is getting installed from a public Wi-Fi or who is monitoring you on a public Wi-Fi. So that's the major 4th thing for an end user, and this is how something may result in a money stolen or money transferred into other accounts. So this is basically a traditional account for a pharma part, right? So what does a traditional security is breached consistently in pharma industry? Why I'm saying is pharma industry is because it's a biggest example today is due to this COVID-19, people or the hackers or the attackers are more interested in giving an attack to a pharma industry. As I'm reading all the articles on various domains of the security infrastructures, hospitals, pharma, and medical facilities are at the major threat because today it's in high demand. Majorly, it is in very much applicable stage, and people are strongly believing that pharma is basically something which will be highly targeted. Hospitals will be highly targeted. So, and consider an example: what happens if a hospital gets attacked? It's not only a financial loss, but it's a loss to basically a patient's life because all his medical records are stolen. So somebody who is taking a treatment over there, right, and the doctor is not able to view his medical history, what will happen, right? So it's again a very bad situation, or very unimaginable thing may happen, which may lead to kind of uh, drastically affecting a cyber world and also to a personal life. So there are some manufacturing systems, software, IoT, biometric, supply chain, and insider threat. And also IoT, and I also lead to OT, because there are very rare endpoint security which may give a secure connections, or which may give a proper signatureless protection to the OT devices. We all know about IT, but what about an industrial infrastructure? What is an industrial control systems like PLCs, like HMIs and all? So we have to prevent this, because if some wrong reading going on the pharma industry and some wrong output coming of the manufactured medicines, what will happen? Either they have to scrap the stock, which is a financial loss. If it is not taken care, it will come in the market and may lead to a you know, life cost analysis. So, what are the threats? It may be an encompassing cybersecurity. It may be a stolen IP. It may be a data integrity, manipulation, loss, damage during development production, forced to repeat costly clinical trials, lost revenue, and litigations. So these are some of the important factor hitting after a cyber attack. So, traditional security is being breached constantly in insurance industry also. Why I'm taking this topic like banking, insurance, and pharma? It's because considering today's pandemic atmosphere, considering today's fear, you know, insurance, you see maximum now people are going for to getting an insurance or getting more top ups and all stuffs and all. So cyber criminals breach the company and database stolen. So PII is basically an personal identification information, personal healthcare information data, all. So insurance is one more industry where you have to take care of cybersecurity industry. So these are some of the examples, some of the critical examples. Why I'm showing this critical example is because they already have a security mechanism in place, but still they may get breached because they may ignore a lateral movement technology, or they may ignore an insider threat part. So your cyber criminal compromised the system, stole specific information, and then quickly moved on. However, the number of long-term attacks may be silently growing as attackers quietly slip in undetected and establish a persistent ongoing presence in critical IT environment. So we think we are defending against. So what we think we are defending against? We are defending against intelligent exploits, spear phishing, custom payloads, advanced data collection or scanning tools, credential harvesting, or remote exploits. But most of the tools are predominantly used gain entry into the networks, that is port scanning, remote desktop, Windows service, ARP flooding, IP scanning, collect information about the enterprise or locate critical assets. So the most damaging part of the attack in the lateral movement is move inside the network. Tactics use the information gathered through some of these tools to reach out the critical assets. So is this basically moving silently, which does not detect under the radar. And how do you don't get detected on the radar is by using some of the technologies which are based on the Windows platform, like some commands like nmap, like ARP/A, which will give you such information, which may give you, slowly moving of the and getting the critical information of the network. So as a particular adaptive security, so by eliminating lateral exploitation initiated by malwares extent. So we, as an adaptive technology, what we do is basically we want a person should not get any kind of information. So we eliminate a lateral exploitation, which is the most important one. So fundamentals is simple. It's all about control, which the information provides control. More reliable information make control easier. Simple. If you give an information which is more reliable, obviously he's going to reach his destination. So the basic part of any attack is to stop a lateral movement, to give information or to give a wrong information, to does not give accurate information, may stop an lateral movement, may stop an attack. And finally, deny information, because as you say, information is the most important factor. Information is the most important thing in today's world. So if you are not sharing any information, if you are not giving any information, so a attacker will not be able to move ahead, and attacker will not, be able to gain access to the critical assets. So how does hackers move inside the network? So again, I'm going to share you that perimeter security breached, endpoint security breach, reconnaissance, lateral movement happens, he takes control over the IT, and then finally the attack happens. So these are some of the stages where a hacker is moving out. What if a reconnaissance stage is the most initial information stage for an attacker? Because based on this information or based on this stage, he's going to decide what next to be done. So what I'll do is I will give him a wrong information, or I will not give him an information at all. So what it should be, it is detect, deceive, and defeat. Security information and event management, proactive monitoring, breach detection, session isolation, and asset awareness. So one is alert caused by an adaptive technology at the reconnaissance stage that somebody is trying to move it. So it's basically denying the information to move ahead is the most important factor, and stopping the attacker at the reconnaissance stage of information gathering stage is the most important factor in any kind of attack or breach happening in today's world. Two gears of cybersecurity. First is network visibility, and second is instant and real-time countermeasures. As I said earlier, if we can't see, we cannot protect. I cannot protect anything with my closed eyes. I have to look, I have to analyze, and then I have to stop it. So network visibility is major chunk in any kind of risk assessment which needs to be done, in any kind of information security which we needs to be managed. And second, instant and real-time countermeasures needs to be taken care. What if somebody is moving in a network visibility scene? What real-time countermeasures you can do and stop that particular thing from getting an information, and by isolating that at that point of time itself. So real-time visibility, hostile deception, and real-time adaptive protection is major three pillars of any kind of adaptive technologies which is to be there. So real-time visibility is basically you have a team which is continuously, I'll show you a practical approach in the session 2, that how this real-time visibility is seen, right? What is basically a threat detected, and what may be a real-time adaptation protection can be done. Again, what is required for a team member or an cybersecurity professional or a particular person who is new to the technology? So it should be plug and play deployment and operation. So you remember my first slide said that too many tools and to understand, and too many tools to deploy is a major challenge, and that's why the breach happens. So any tools what you are using for an adaptive technology to, so it should be operational ease. So it should be easy. There should be a rocket science, to implement that, and it should be plug and play deployment. So every time you don't have to make changes in your device, in your network, or any kind of your infrastructure without giving an extra cost to a particular operations. So what does an adaptive defense security should have? So first is stop lateral movement by denying information to the hacker. Yes, that's the major pillar or major base of that. You should stop lateral movement by denying information. Then you should have a real-time visibility network where you can view everything on a real time, what is happening, what is moving, which machine is communicating to what, everything. Then real-time network vulnerability and network hygiene assessment. Yes, you have to do that. How do you do that? By understanding the real-time visibility and doing an assessment, checking out the logs, checking out the reports and everything. 24/7 autonomous assets monitoring, infiltrating landmines, automatic countermeasure and alerts. So something if happens, there is some lateral movement going on, you can see on your real time. Yes, it has to hit a landmine. Landmine is something you have a security wall. If it is hit, so immediate it should be isolated. Immediately an alert should be thrown to a particular cybersecurity team. Policy that for enhanced security and access system. So no additional investment in people. That is the most important thing, because after this COVID, people are more, you know, yes, cybersecurity is an important factor, but even the budget is also important thing. Minimum investment in the infrastructure, ease of deployment, operational ease, integration with existing investments. So nothing needs to be changed in the adaptive technology. It's basically a monitoring thing which you need to put it along with your existing security setups, along with your existing security setups. No operational dependencies on the product vendor. No, it is basically easy to use. Operational use is easy, so you don't have to be depend on the vendor of the product or something while implementing adaptive technology. And a person who is managing your IT can also manage such kind of lateral movements, adaptive technology things. So the question is, we always, those who want to aspire into a cybersecurity world, right, there are something which comes out of, who wants to build a career, right? So these are some of the technologies which will be in demand, which will be there always. So, and this is a future like AI, machine learning, behavior analysis, packet capturing, and above and all adaptive technology. Why I'm saying this is, you should always start learning, and the basics to learn any kind of thing in a cybersecurity, the very most important prerequisite you require is you should have a knowledge about network. You should have a knowledge about network security, because the only thing which you are going to protect is network, whether it may be a single mobile device or whether it may be a device which is associated with your network enterprise or which is your infrastructure. So if you don't know the network, you will not be able to protect it, believe me. So you need to know the network. So majorly what is the important thing is to get information about network. So those who are looking for a career in cybersecurity, those who want to make something in a cybersecurity, understand you have to be good in networks. I'm not telling best, but at least good. You should be aware of how server works. You should be aware how, what is network switch works, how network switch operates and all. And secondly, once you are good in network, you can go for certified ethical hacking, you can go for various courses. But I recommend that previously going for some kind of big certifications, at least have your base clear by doing some free certification course which are available online. There are various certification courses which are available online. There are some e-learning platforms. There are some basic learning platforms where you get a basic knowledge, and then you can go for some certifications. You can go for some achievements in the cybersecurity field. So that was about an adaptive technology. That was about a lateral movement. That was about cyber kill chain of recon science and weaponization, and how a hacker, an insider attacker, may move inside slowly to reach its critical assets. So Any questions or anything, I would like to hear from your side, and it would be really great. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Soumil, sir. It was marathon talk on cybersecurity in current world with respect to frameworks based on NIST and cyber kill chain. You have provided very good information full of case studies being adopted in cybersecurity industries. Now I would like to have few queries from the participants. May I ask few queries, sir? The first query from the participant, that is Shreya Parmar. She is asking what is the voice message phishing and how it is done.
Okay. So voice message phishing reflects to basically you get, say that you have got a voice message. Like for example, nowadays VoIP phones are majorly chunked in an enterprise editions. So sometimes what happens if you miss a VoIP calls or something, so they have already an answering machines on that, which may give an alert or something like that. So it may lead to that you missed your important message. So click on this message or voice messages, right? And you click on that particular term. What happens is it may not be a voice messages. It may be some kind of a cryptography code, which may sound like an audio to you, but at the background, there is some associated script which may run. So it's always confirmed that whether there is some call or so, you can go to your VoIP device and check for the call list records, and then only approach if there is something happening to a particular email or not.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next query is from our research scholar from Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Technology, Professor Bhushan Patil. He is asking, do we have cyber insurance? How it mitigates the risk?
Okay, so as I say, cyber insurance is basically a very new term, right? People are not aware about cyber issues. So there are some, yes, there is a cyber insurance which are there in place and provided by some very big players in the today's world. What happens is majorly a cyber insurance has some kind of terms and conditions. So basically, if you don't comply to its regular terms and conditions, so majorly securing of your network and the compliance of your network is major important to it. If you don't meet the compliance and meet with an attack, it's same like a normal insurance. Like if you are smoking and you don't say that you are smoking, you don't get a medical insurance, right? Same way, if you don't meet the compliance, so like for example, they have some audits like ISO 27000 is an IT audit, it's an information security audit and all that. So if you meet the compliance, insure your thing, and then there are some ransomware attacks, there are some breaches. So there are some servers which you insure them if it gets breached and there is a data loss. So cyber insurance comes into the picture. But still, it is a very initial stage. So they are still developing the policies. They are still working on the same.
Yes, yes. I hope the query is answered properly. Next question is from our participant, Mr. Ashfaq Sheikh, who is assistant professor at Sabu Siddiqui College of Engineering, Mumbai. Am I audible, Ashfaq sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can I audible to you?
Yes, yes. Please go ahead with your queries to Mr. Soumil directly.
Can you am I audible now?
Oh, sir, your voice is having an echo.
Hello. Yes, sir. My question is regarding implementing challenges. You said real environment. What is the as a network implementation point of view? How will you manage very large network in the real time? Since the organization is and it's very difficult to maintain all the activity in the real time, monitoring all the activities. So how what are the implementation challenges? And second part of my question is regarding the framework that you're talking about, NIST and other, and for the students who are interested in starts, they can make of the framework and do the product out of it. So this is my two small questions. Is that clear? This question is clear? Patil sir?
Yeah. So coming to your first question, am I audible? Okay.
You are perfectly audible.
Yeah. So coming to your first question, sir, how to manage a large enterprise, right? So there are the list of risk assessment which every time it happens, what we call it as a security audit. This is especially for the large enterprise. What happens is when we are doing a risk assessment, we run a trial run of any kind of breaches or any kind of risk happening in the network, right? So first is basically pre-designing some kind of security peripherals on that. As far as the real-time monitoring is concerned, so there are some automated response systems which are already there. You have a view, you have an incident management systems, right? So a real-time view is already on. Suddenly something happens or some lateral movement is happening, it will go and hit an incident management system. What will happen? Incident management system will send you an alert immediately. So that is called as a real-time response to any kind of activity which is happening. So at that time, the real-time visibility or the map will come into the picture and will give you a clear idea of it. And as far as your framework question, sir, framework is designed with an intention to give a risk assessment, to give an information security prospect. So if you have a good mechanism of an information security in place, if you have a good mechanism of a chain of policies which are being set, what will happen is it will be able to detect more efficiently, you will be able to detect more precisely, and at the same time you will be gathering an information which is concrete based on both protection as well as the compliance set by the government.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashfaq. Thank you, Soumya sir, for the query response. Now, next query is coming from Mamta Bandkar. She is asking, is Wi-Fi in our house safe for net banking?
Okay, so basically it's a very open-ended question. Is Wi-Fi safe for it? Yes, if I have all the security mechanism installed in my public Wi-Fi, like I have authentication, right? And at the same time, I have my two-factor authentication in my mobile app, where I'm using a net banking, or in my browser where I am having a net banking. So it is safe, but subject to it is only your area which you are accessing the Wi-Fi, and it has been not shared to anyone, or it is not been openly given to any kind of person who you don't know, or it may be an outsider which is not in your idea.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Next question. Interesting question coming up. That is, how can we identify that the banking apps deployed on Google Store are from legitimate source or fake source?
Okay, so for that it is always you should always enable you should always check on the banking websites, right? First you have to check for HTTPS, right? Because normally phishing websites for HTTP, it is not advisable. It should be HTTPS. Second, the banking website, whether it is a phishing website or the normal website, is basically there is, when you log in, right, there is an identification given by every banking technology to, and you should be enable it. So it is called as an resource of extra authentication system, which is always being implemented by a banking technology. So if it's a phishing website, you will not get a second layer of authentication on the phishing website. You may directly go inside, right? So always, if they don't ask you for two-layer authentication, so always talk to your bank that is there any two-layer authentication available, right? Secondly, you have always check a grammatical errors, because it may be closely looking website, but if you check, for example, HDFCS, if I write on a website hdfcs.com, so we as a user, we only see the browser, we say, okay, HDFC, and the page has opened, but we never ever see actual domain name. So it has been translated to HDFCS. So that S is a sign that it may be a phishing website. So always remember to check the grammatical part of your address, and be more secure by checking each and every thing entered in the browser.
Okay, sir. This was quite a description of the answer. And may I ask last question, sir?
Yes, please.
The question is, how important is it to stay up to date with the changes in the vulnerability landscape?
Okay, so it is as important right now as breathing. Why I said this is because, as I say, zero-day attacks. Today, attackers are more efficient. Like first, it was like uh, if you want to attack, if you are an ethical hacker, you have to be like you have to think like an hacker. But now in today's world, it is reverse. Hackers are thinking like a protector. So there are more advanced tools available, and sometimes it may happen that there are no human intervention. Everything is controlled by the botnets. Everything is a robotic thing which is happening. So being updated in a vulnerable system is basically, I say, daily analysis of your vulnerability assessment report should be there, right? Whether it is you are using in a mobile or whether it is so if for an end user, if I say, always whenever you access any website on the browser in your mobile, you access any banking application, see to it that you have a habit of clearing the cache, you have a habit of clearing the history, you have a habit of clearing junk files, because sometimes we don't ignore. And if you are using a desktop user, see to it by the end of the day you clear all your temporary files, so that it is not vulnerable and you have a good report. And yes, it is very important, very much important, to be updated on the vulnerability statistics of today. Very important.
Thank you, sir. Now, towards the end of the session, this session was full of risk management framework for cybersecurity. Now, next session will be on hands-on adaptive technology and lateral movement attack mechanism. Will begin shortly after the break at 1 o'clock sharp. I request all of you to be online attending this. So this session ends here. I request host to end the session.